Bon après-midi à tous. Welcome everyone this afternoon to a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment, Panel 1 for the urban area. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider planning act applications, including minor variances and consents to sever, and more commonly, permissions as well. Our hearings are back to being in person. However, the committee can enable remote participation by video conferencing when requested by registered speakers. You are live streaming on YouTube as we speak, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public on the committee's website. My name is Anne Tremblay, and with me today in person, I have member Keklikan, and online we have two members as well, member Blatherwick and member Coakley. All right, so in terms of the procedure, we have a short meeting agenda today. We're going to deal with essentially the adjournments first, then with the unopposed, and then we'll go to the regular items. So should be a quick afternoon. Listed on the agenda, as you saw, was essentially the order in which the applications are received, and we can always change the order. And as I mentioned, we're going to kind of do that today. Note that the panel members have reviewed all of the materials prior to being here today and before hearing the application. So there's quite a bit of time that is spent by panel members going through that material. We do in fact have a chance to pre-meet and get further clarification on things. So we're well versed on a lot of the applications going in. So what we really want to hear is any oral submissions in addition to what we have. And of course, we'll give a chance to the applicants and anyone else who has an interest to speak. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. And then they're also required to confirm in writing or through oath that they fulfilled that same posting requirement. So we have it that all of the sign declarations are in, so there'll be no issues there for anyone today. So the panel may ask for a brief presentation on an application, followed by questions to the applicant and the city planner. And then we hear from members of the public, starting with those that are on my speakers list. And I actually have a very short speakers list today. And then finally, the applicant who has the burden of proof has the chance to make the final comments and reply. I would ask that you please address all of your comments to me as the chair, starting with your name and spelling if necessary, especially since we don't really have anybody on the speakers list. So I will need that before we give you your 5 minutes, and that is the limit. And any exceptions are essentially at the discretion of the panel chairs. So at the end of the hearing on the application, the panel may either make an oral decision or we can reserve our decision. In the latter case, the committee's decision will not be delivered during the course of the hearing, but we will definitely make that decision before we leave here today. In all cases and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send an official written decision and reason for its decisions to all of the parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy of the decision. So now we'll go to sort of items of business before we get started. So any declarations of conflict of interest by panel members for either the agenda items today on our panel or for panels 2 or 3 yesterday. Member Keklikan.
Madam Chair, the item number 3 is located in my neighborhood, and so I will recuse myself from those discussions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any minutes to adopt? Just a minute. I think we have none today. All right. Okay, so let's go then to the adjournment requests. As I mentioned, we have a number of those. I'd like to start with item number 1, which is 304 Fairmont. I'm looking for Mr. Cox, the agent. You can come on down. Good afternoon. Gonna let you turn on your mic there. Doesn't sound like it.
There we go. Thank you. Madam Chair, Jim Cox, address 33 Gould Street in Ottawa.
All right, so Mr. Cox, can you just briefly explain the reason for the adjournment request?
In the city's letter There were 8 conditions. Now we're down to 7, and the owner, we just haven't had time to go through and understand exactly the timing and the costs and the implication of some of the conditions that were put in. Fortunately, I think we got shafted a bit by Easter in that we lost two business days, and it was only yesterday that most of my professionals could get back to us. And I've spoken to the planner and sort of agreed to adjourn for a couple of weeks just so that we can understand it and not sort of waste each other's time.
All right, that's perfect. Then questions from panel members on this adjournment. I understand it's April 17th that you'd be looking for?
Yes, please.
All right. So any questions? No? All right, that said, I'm going to go out to the public. I don't have anybody on my speakers list for this item. Anybody who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to the adjournment request to April 17th? Now's your chance. Not seeing anybody. So all those in favor from the panel? All right, so for the record, the decision is unanimous and granted. So we'll see you back here on the 17th.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the second item, and I think we can deal with these together, is number 4 and 5. So for 212 Carruthers and also for 117 Armstrong and 227 Carruthers. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of panel. My name is Nadia DeSanti from WSP Canada, Inc. Yes, on behalf of CCOC, we are requesting an adjournment. There's been another variance that has been identified by the city planner for both sites. And then there's some other comments that we are still working with. We do have a meeting with Miss Margot Linker this Friday. So we are seeking an adjournment for these 2 files, please. And I understand in discussions with Committee of Adjustment staff that there would be a recirculation requirement since a new variance is being added. So I'll work with Mr. Garnett on what that entails and what submission requirements are needed.
All right, would you be open then to a sine die?
Yes, I understand that sine die is the way to go for this one.
All right. So on application number 4 for 212 Carruthers, any questions from the panel members on this? Can I get the gallery view, please? Yeah. Is it possible? I don't think so, but I don't see Mr. Coakley.
I am here, Madam Chair, and I have no issues, no questions.
All right, thank you. Because guests couldn't see you at all until you spoke, and then I can see you, which works great. So with that, then there's nobody on my speakers list. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this adjournment request, either for or against to as a sine die adjournment? All right, I'm not seeing anybody. So with that, panel members, and again, gallery view would be very helpful if I could have it, please. Thank you. All those in favor? All right, for the record, the decision is unanimous and granted, Ms. DeSanti, so we'll see you whenever you get a chance to bring things forward. There's only one thing I wanted to mention to you, because there's a height element in the variances that you're requesting for this particular application, not the other one that we'll talk about in just a minute. The planning evidence with regards to that height, you might want to submit additional information because we found that it was a little bit light with regards to being, since height is always such an issue, we tend to ask for quite a bit of planning evidence on that. So you may want to submit additional information. So
yes, thank
just
you.
mention that. All right. Okay. On to the next application. You just want to give us why this again,
Oh,
this
again.
particular application? Yes.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Again, it's the same reason as the previous application. There's an additional variance that we need to apply for. And there's one thing I just wanted to note. I have flagged this with the Committee of Adjustment Coordinator that the notice for 171 Armstrong, variance D, the reduced aggregated rectangular landscaped area should be 19.6 square meters, not 19.2. But we'll address that when we resubmit for this application in the site. So it was an error that we caught, and I was advised that it would be caught or addressed either on the floor or through the recirculation.
All right, since we are going through the recirculation, we can catch it then, but generally speaking, when we see that the relief is lesser than
Mhm.
then we don't have an issue with
Yes,
doing
no, I
that.
understand. I just wanted to make a note of that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Any questions from the panel on this particular application? Not seeing any. Don't have anybody on my speakers list for this one either. So anyone in the audience or online who would like to speak either for or against the adjournment request sine die this application? All right, not seeing anybody. So with that, all those in favor? All right, so for the record, it is unanimous and granted sine die. We'll see you back with the other application, I would
Yes,
imagine.
yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that takes us to then our unopposed application. So looking at number 3 for address is 469 Wilbrod, looking for Mr. Vio.
Good afternoon, Robert Vio, agent.
Okay, and we have your address, and with you today is who?
It's Charles Vio, he's my assistant.
So the panel has had a chance to go through this application. Our understanding is that it's very straightforward. There's been no opposition. Staff has not, has essentially provided the information that we need through their staff report, and no additional information has been submitted. So with that, then we can go, I believe, straight to a vote from the panel on this. So all those in favor? Oh, actually, just 1 minute. I guess we need to, don't have anybody on my speakers list, but is there anyone who wants to speak to this either for or against? No? All right. That's what we thought. And with that, all those in favor? All right. So for the record, the application is granted. Thank you very much
Thank you very much.
for your time. All right. We are now going to number 2, 507 Bay with Ms. McQuaid.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. McQuaid. Okay, so with your application, let me just catch up here, make sure that there's nothing. All right, and I just want to, I seem to be the one who was somewhat confused. So there's 4 existing units now, and you're adding 6, correct?
So actually there was a slight correction. So there's 4 existing. With the partial demolition of the existing structure, 1 of those will go, leaving 3 remaining in the original building and 7 additional. So 3 and 7 to make 10 as opposed to 4 and 6, but there is currently 4 in the existing building now.
Looking for some guidance from our Deputy Secretary Treasurer. In a case like this, should we be amending the notice? Because what we're really saying here is that with the demolition, we're adding 7, like how, is there any change required in your opinion?
Madam Chair, the notice does accurately indicate, I believe, that 10 units will exist in the resulting building. However, it does indicate that there are 6 units in the addition, whereas I'm hearing there may be 7 in the additions. So perhaps for greater clarity, we could make that correction.
Ms. McQuaid, any issues with that?
No issues with the change to the description, and the total amount of units remains the same. And the legal non-compliant component relates to the setback of the rear yard. Ultimately, the use is permitted currently and in either case.
All right, okay, so I just wanted to make sure the notice was correct. So, so I guess we're essentially 3-story addition containing 7 apartment dwellings.
Correct.
Okay,
And the existing building now has a total of 4 units, but in the partial demolition of that existing building, 1 of those units has to come off.
And I'm glad you explained that because we did see that on the survey
Mhm.
plan and that was going to be my next question too.
Yes,
So
and,
thank you.
and I think in the result of the notice and the current wording, I think that was sort of my reading of the floor plans in counting all the units, and there was a bit of back and forth with myself and the architect, so that was the slight discrepancy between the 3 and 7 versus 4 and 6 was just in the reading of the floor plans.
And to be honest, I read your report and I don't remember seeing that discussion though, that explained. Is it in there? And did I miss it?
So my report did say 3 and 7. Sorry, my report said 4 and 6, I believe, and then the discussion came afterwards.
About the partial demolition and the removal of a unit?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks. I somehow missed that one. All right, any questions for Ms. McQuaid on this application?
I do.
Member Blatherwick?
Could we pull up the vertical that shows the rear balconies? If that's easy to get at.
They are on slide 9 of my presentation, if that's readily available.
Okay, so my question to you, Ms. McQuaid, is the balconies that are indicated on the north elevation, and I guess on the east elevation as well. The balustrades on those balconies, especially at the second and third floor levels, are they going to be opaque or clear?
It looks like balusters, but I can get clarification on that. It wasn't the subject of the review, whether they were opaque or balusters, but they do look like balusters to me, but I can obtain clarification from the architect.
What I would suggest is for to maintain better privacy and enjoyment of amenity open space outside, that that on the not on the ground floor balcony, but on the second and third floor balconies, an opaque balustrade would help as far as privacy that may be impacted for incumbent neighbors to the who live in the immediate lots abutting this one.
Acknowledge. I'll make sure to relay that to the architect to incorporate into final plans.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I had, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Blatherwick. Any other questions?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Member Coakley? Member Kecklicken? No? All right. Okay. Ms. McQuaid, anything additional that we need to know?
No.
All right. With that then, I don't believe there's anybody on our list. There isn't. Is there anyone in the audience here or online who would like to speak to this application either for or against?
Through you, Madam Chair, the owners are online, so if you're seeing individuals, they are available in case there was questions to them.
All right, thank you, but I don't think I'm seeing anybody come forward. Okay. So with that then, Ms. McQuaid, we can go to a vote unless you want to add anything.
No, I'm happy to proceed to a vote. Thank you.
All right, so members, all those in favor?
Yeah.
All right, so for the record, the application is unanimously granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us then, last but not least, to application number 6, which is 182 Daniel. And I guess Mr. Segreto must be online.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon,
Board
Mr.
members.
Segreto.
Hi.
So have you submitted a PowerPoint presentation with us, Mr. Segreto?
I have.
Then can we please hear from you on that?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so this is the first page. The proposal that I have in front of you here today is we have a single-family dwelling at 182 Daniel Avenue. My clients have purchased it just recently. They've been in the neighborhood for a number of years, and what they'd like to do is to construct a new two-story single-family dwelling with a front-facing garage, and that's why I'm in front of you here today for variance A to permit a front-facing garage where the bylaw doesn't allow it due to the streetscape character analysis. So item number A would be the minor variance that's in front of you with our soft landscaping, which is outlined in the green there. We exceed our soft landscaping, and so that's okay. Next slide, please. So this is the front elevation that we're looking at. The blue house is 182 Daniel. As you can see, it's a two-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage, single-car garage off to the side. And there's a Colorado spruce tree in front, which will be protected and saved. And hopefully nothing will happen to this tree because it is out of the building envelope, which is permitted to build. As you can see, there's been some development on this street years ago. Off to the south, there's a new two-story family dwelling, and off to the north, there's another single two-story family dwelling with front-facing garages. Next. This is the proposal that I have in front of you, the two-story single-family dwelling with the front-facing garage, which blends in with the existing singles that are there. Next, please. This was the streetscape analysis that we did. The red block is obviously the subject property that we're dealing with, and the arrows you can see that are pointing to the other front-facing garages, and there are 5 in total in blue, and then there's at 205, I think it is, there's a carport. But as you can see directly in front of us, there are 3 other houses that have been recently built. I think there's one other one that has been recently built. And then there's a couple of carports, and at 175 and 173, Daniel, those are brand new houses that were built as well. Due to the characteristics of the neighborhood, we get caught with the front-facing garage, and that's why I'm asking for this variance today. Next, please. That's the streetscape analysis that we've done, and that's how we come to this minor variance. We don't meet it. Next. This is a street view of the subject property as indicated on the right-hand side, and you're looking north. So that's the view that you get looking north right down Daniel Street. Next, please. That's the subject property with the new proposed two-story single-family dwelling. And we're showing you variance A, which is the front-facing garage. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the tree report that we have. There's a total of 5 trees on this site. As I explained to you, the tree number 1, which is highlighted in red at the top of the page, that is the Colorado spruce tree. And the red line indicates the barrier for the tree to be protected with its root system. That one there will be protected, and hopefully the guys on site will not damage it. When you're looking at tree number 2, this is the tree that will be impacted the most, which is within the building footprint, the allowable building footprint. So this is the tree that the bur oak that we're requesting to remove. Then there's another tree, tree number 3, a horse chestnut, that will be removed. And then there's an apple tree in the back as well, which is to be removed. These are trees that are not very healthy, as outlined in the tree report. And then there's tree number 5, which is to be retained. We're not going to do anything to that one. That one's going to be protected. So there's 2 trees that are being removed that are not very healthy. And then the tree, the bur oak, which is the one that's probably the one in question here, that we're asking to be removed because it's impacting the size of our house and it's in the critical root system of the foundation, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So this is the bur oak tree. As you can see slightly to the south of us, the house that was built 4 or 5 years ago, they've notched that tree in order to protect the bur oak. My understanding is through the tree report that there is some damage to the critical root system of this tree, and it's not as healthy as can be. With respect to us building close to this tree, there'd be a lot of damage to this tree, especially with the umbrella, which would be canopying over the proposed 2-story dwelling, and with the root systems that are there now. There's a porch, I think, in the back, but that's on sonotubes. So those roots do go underneath the existing porch. But if we were to build within our rights, those roots would get damaged. Anyways, next slide, please. I think it shows it better. Okay, so the pink that you're looking at here is the critical root system that is being impacted by this 2-story single-family proposal. As you can see on the right-hand side of the house at 184 that was built a few years ago, they did everything they could to protect the root system as much as they could, because the tree, when you're looking at it, it's about 3 meters or so, 10 feet or so away from the house that was built 3-4 years ago. In our case here, when you're looking at the tree's right in the corner. We've looked at trying to redesign the house, and we've come up with different alternatives, but the owners were very adamant, having a very young family with children, that they do need the space, and they can't afford to lose that space. One could say, well, why not get rid of the garage then and have a driveway off to the north side and go to the back? We really don't want to do that either, because it does take away a lot from the house itself. And by having a detached garage at the back of the house, this is something that I believe the community as well is not in favor of, and it would take a lot of the space out from the house. So we did look at it, but they were adamant that they really need the space for their young children, their young family. The other thing I forgot to mention is that there are about half a dozen or so or more letters of support. My clients did go knocking on all the immediate neighbors and across the street, and there's about 6, 7, 8 letters of support with respect to the variance that's in front of you here today. Next slide, please. So this is the replacement tree. It doesn't look like we're going to be replacing anything, but the trees that are being maintained are there. And then some new private trees, I think 2 little ones in the back that we'll be putting in. Next slide, please. And that's just basically the 4 elevations showing you the massing of the house and window locations and roof lines. That's my my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segredo. Just one quick question for me before I turn it over to the others. What's the square meter size of the house overall?
I believe it's about 2,700 square feet.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, members of the committee, any questions on the application? All right, I have another one. I can go. So, Mr. Segredo, my understanding is, well, actually, maybe you can tell me. Is there a front-facing garage today?
Today?
Yes.
Yes, there is. If you look at the second second page, I believe it was the second page, it shows the existing house with the front facing garage. Maybe you can go back to it, if staff can go back to that second page on the
Is the-
PowerPoint.
Is the garage attached, Mr. Segreto?
You know what? I'm not quite sure. Is it, Mary Beth? It is attached. The roof lines are attached, I believe. The roof lines? It's attached, yeah. I'm told it's attached.
But so it looks like there's maybe just a breezeway then between the two, right? So it's, were it not for that roof portion creating a breezeway, it probably would be detached. Would that be fair to say?
Well, it would be fair to say, but I'm not sure if it is or not. There's a foundation, I'm told by my staff members that there's a foundation which is linked to the garage in the house. But you may be correct, Madam Chair. There might be a breezeway there, yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking to Ms. Who was our planner on this? Just bear with me. Is it Ms. Linker? Good afternoon, Ms. Linker.
Good afternoon.
Just a couple of questions for you then. On this, I take it a couple of things. So we're thinking, is there any legal non-conforming rights here at all that would have been able to be argued by Mr. Segreto, or is it a completely different circumstance?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Once you remove an attached front-facing garage, if that's what that is, then and you rebuild one, you have to resubmit a streetscape character analysis, and it would not have any legal non-complying rights.
Okay, what if it was built on exactly the same footprint? Any issues there?
Per the rules of the streetscape character analysis, once there's a demolition of a attached front-facing garage and it's rebuilt, then you have to follow the new rules. And the rules of the street is that's not the dominant character.
All right. And just one more question for me then, Mr. Segreto, the house is actually going to be closer to the street than the current structure, correct?
A little bit.
Just a little bit, I would say maybe 600, a couple of feet closer, but they are in line with the existing houses that are there, and we're meeting the proper setbacks.
Well, the reason I asked that was because you had that photograph that showed essentially with the streets standing on Daniel and looking straight down. And I just wanted to get a sense of just how much more forward the new house will be and how it would fit into that streetscape.
Perfectly in line with the houses on
It's in line with the other two houses that have been built there in the last couple of years. They line up. If you look at the first page of my PowerPoint, it clearly shows you the front of the house, and the porches, again, they blend in with the porches that are to the north of us as well. There's a covered porch. As you can see, yeah, the gray area obviously is the new building, and then the two dotted lines to the right and left are the existing houses that are there now.
All right, thank you. That was helpful. I didn't catch that the first time around, but yeah, they are in line. Okay. Okay, those were my questions. Anybody else on the panel have any questions for Mr. Segreto on this? All right, in that case, I do have one person on my list, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it would be Ms. Pearl. Is she online?
She is online, Madam Chair.
I'm online. I'm trying to get my, okay, there I am, finally.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm with the Champlain Park Community Association. I'm Heather Pearl. I deal with the planning and zoning and policy issues with with development in the community. And I do want to say that we actually do favor the proposed front-facing garage, because this has been basically the pattern that has occurred in Champlain Park since, 2007, when development discovered our community. And some of the alternatives are just not on as far as we're concerned from a climate change perspective. The impacts of climate change and the need to mitigate those impacts to the extent possible in an already heavily intensified and further intensifying neighborhood mean that rear yard parking really isn't a viable option, because it's going to end up creating more hard surface. It puts a structure in the backyard that creates additional hard surface. And we already are in a situation where we have overland flooding. We have a need to maintain as much as possible the green space and the trees and the vegetation that currently exist in this community, because we're already having trouble with that sort of thing. Heat island effect is significant in parts of the community that have already been heavily developed. Carlton Avenue used to be tree lined. It is now basically a tree desert along the street. There are still some rear yard trees, but they're going quickly. So large footprints, permitted projections, impervious driveways, and other hard surfaces have combined such that our new normal includes regular flooding because our aging storm sewers are not adequate to handle the volume of water during our new normal storms. We can't afford to lose more green space via long paved driveways to rear yard garages, especially given that our limestone bedrock sits about 6 inches below the surface. And I know that from gardening. You get 6 inches down, and anything I have on my property is because I've brought in soil. So rear yard parking also brings vehicles into more enclosed spaces where headlights, engine noise, and emissions can harm the neighbors. So we absolutely do support the application for a front-facing garage. I mean, ideally, we'd love to have a narrower driveway, but it would be nice if they thought about putting in permeable materials. Permeable materials would be great. That's a perfect alternative. And I think it will fit, this house will fit nicely amongst the houses that have been going in on Daniel Avenue. Now, our next issue is the heritage tree in the rear yard. We really do promote design with nature options. And it's because zoning bylaws must give full consideration to their impact on local climate and health and safety and livability. And during the consultations that produced the mature neighborhoods overlay and alternative provisions, preserving mature trees and preserving room to plant new trees was just top of mind. I've been following climate change issues ever since I was a late teenager. I'm 75 now, so I know a lot about it. Now, what I think we have to look at is that in the matters of provincial interest, we're not talking about discrete columns with individual items in those discrete columns. All of these things are interlinked. We have to think of this as a 3D Venn diagram. And in this case, some of the things that just really jump out at me are item S, the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions and adaptation to a changing climate. E and F both deal with conservation of energy and water and adequate and efficient use of sewage and water services and waste management. H and O talk about development of safe and healthy communities and the protection of public health and safety. So we know that trees mitigate a lot of the health effects of climate change, which include heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, birth outcomes due to heat stress, and the fact that particulates actually cross the placenta. trees capture and direct into the ground these types of things where soil microbes can actually break them down. Childhood asthma is on the increase. We have significant issues already in Ottawa, and I think you saw my attachments where I did showed the heat island effect from 2019 data, that's city data, the tree canopy study that used 2017 data that was done by the NCC, and the stormwater flow that shows where the problems occur. We're right on the Ottawa River. Anything that's the tire particulates, the pollution, etc., animal waste even that gets left around, that flows into the Ottawa River just near our drinking water intakes. So,
Thank you. So Ms. Pearl, your 5 minutes are up. I'm just going to give you another minute to wrap up.
okay, great. Thank you. Anyway, so what we would really hope, we are home to healthy bur oak trees that predate Confederation and that were preserved when the neighborhood was first developed in the 1950s. Geomaps indicates the house adjacent to the tree at 184 Daniel, which was built in 2018. That's almost 6 years ago. The rear wall, as has been noted, is notched out so the tree could be protected. The heritage oak provides vital ecosystem services, stormwater capture and controlled release, cooling, pollutant capture, etc. 2 new trees planted in the rear yard to replace it will take at least 30 years to begin providing some of these services. Trees grow slowly on our Elvar. Perhaps it will take much longer than 30 years. So the health benefits of having mature front and rear yard trees are well documented, scientifically documented, absolutely proved. We truly hope that there are design with nature options that will allow this tree both to continue providing significant benefits to the community and meet the needs of the family who's being asked to save it. And I think, given that it meets the matters of provincial interest to actually respond to these climate change issues, then perhaps we should consider, we had thought maybe an adjournment would be in order to try to have a bit of a redesign, because, I mean, the whole house doesn't have to be redesigned, but it's a fairly
Ms.
large
Pearl?
house.
Okay, time is up.
All right.
Any questions for our speaker? All right. Do we have anybody from forestry with us? Ms. Young, okay, good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So Ms. Young, you're familiar with the application, you know the issues with regards to that bur oak?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I have a few questions. So that house that was developed next to the subject property that seems to be very close, is it possible that part of the reason that tree is not doing well is because of that development?
The tree is actually doing very well. It's in excellent condition. I was out to see it earlier this week. So yeah, I think the wording in the tree report was a little bit misleading. There may have been a number of impacts, smaller impacts from that development, but it is in excellent condition.
All right. Thank you. That's helpful then to have that clarification. So, have you been involved in any discussions about redesigning in an effort to preserve that tree?
Yes, I did meet with the applicants yesterday, and it sounds like they did speak to a number of their professionals to try to find ways to work around it. I would be interested still in hearing more from the arborist on what the actual setback would need to be from the tree, because that was the main concern, is how far away the building would need to be from the tree and whether it would actually be constructible with that setback. But I didn't see any information at all in the TIR about what the setback would actually need to be. So I think there is still some more exploratory work to do prior to the building permit application. It isn't tied to the minor variance here, like the concerns are not related to the garage at all, unless they were to shrink the size of the garage or something, but it's kind of a separate thing. So I think there may still be opportunities. I mean, when we're looking at opportunities to retain trees, single houses have lots more flexibility than multi-unit ones, and also tree species. This one, bur oaks tend to be able to withstand some more construction work around them than other tree species. So it is a very worthwhile one to try to look at every option possible. And I do understand that the applicants did start with this and they have looked at some options, but I would certainly be willing to work with them or to have further discussions on any opportunities here, because it is a significant tree.
All right, just one last question, and not to put you on the spot. If we were looking at a single car garage as opposed to a double car garage, do you think that there would be a better opportunity to preserve that tree in that case?
No.
Don't really know. It's possible. I mean, any amount of space that could be removed from that back corner would be beneficial. I don't think they would be quite enough, like just in terms of the actual parking space available. I don't think that would necessarily protect enough of the critical root zone to retain it, but I'd need input from the arborist to know.
All right, thank you. With that, then I'm going to go to Mr. Segreto. Maybe if you could tell me a little bit about your redesign efforts to save the tree.
You want to speak on that? No. So I can start off by saying that we sent our application for pre-consultation 2 months ago, and I didn't hear back from the planning department until last Thursday when I got the planning report. So I didn't get any information or any input from planning from 2 months ago. But I know in my office here, we have talked to the contractor, we have talked to some of the engineers, and we have talked with the owner, and the owner is pretty adamant about removing the tree due to the fact that he has a young family, and we looked at different options with doing the floor plans, and it just doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit in with the home that they want to build. You know, they're spending an enormous amount of money on this property to get the home that they want. With reducing the garage, as I mentioned, it's not going to work. And if we end up putting a driveway off to the side, if you go to my floor plan, you'll see that with the root system, with the photograph that I showed you in red, with the critical root system, a good quarter to almost a third of the house of that root system is going to get damaged. And I don't think we'll be able to save that tree. That's where I am at.
So, Mr. Segreto, as you know, the committee now has to consider the impact on trees as an important element in our decision-making with regards to proposed variances for development. So, and I think, you know, what we're hearing right now is that there's maybe an opportunity to do a redesign that would maybe be a win-win for saving the tree and maybe a redesign. I understand what you're saying about what your clients would like, but we're still left with the importance of the official plan policy with regards to the consideration of tree preservation in our decisions. So,
my argument to that, Madam Chair, would be that as of right, if I were to not be in front of you here today with that minor variance for the front-facing garage, I would be entitled to go and apply for a building permit. get my building permit and apply for a tree removal permit. And I have the right to get my tree removal permit because I'm within the building envelope of the proper setbacks, and it's within the building envelope, and I would get a removal for that tree. I could do that tomorrow.
That's very interesting because it kind of makes the whole purpose of our deliberation about preserving trees a little moot, doesn't it? So I'm going to ask Ms. Young to come back. I just want to confirm how that would work then. So is it in fact the case that were it not for, so if Mr. Segreta wanted to come in with a large house and forget the garage, that would take the building envelope, that tree into the building envelope, there'd be nothing to do to save that tree?
We would still be looking at all options to redesign. It wouldn't have the official plan backing that we have here, but it is within the allowable building footprint, which is, it's an awkward location, but forestry would still be going through all the same questions and asking for any changes possible at that stage as well.
Okay, and clearly the existing structure hasn't had any impact, so it's because we're increasing development on the site that we have an issue. All right, okay, thank you, Ms. Young. Any other questions then from our panel members on this? Okay, I don't believe I have any other speakers. I'm just going to make a final call. Is there anyone out in the audience or online who would like to speak either for or against this application? Okay. With that, then I think we're going to reserve on this, Mr. Segreta. I think we need to have a bit of a discussion. The tree certainly adds an element of complexity for us. So,
yep.
All right. Okay. So with that, then any final words to wrap up, Mr. Segreta?
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And so that brings us to the end of our items on our agenda. We can close the meeting at this point. Any concerns by anybody, or are we adjourned?
Yeah.
Not seeing everybody, but can I get the gallery view again, please? All right, so we're adjourned, folks? Okay. All right, thank you very much for your time. You'll need to come back, as you know, so we'll see you in a few minutes.